Ever scroll through those online deals and just wonder, am I saving money or am I just, heck this plate?
Happens all the time, doesn't it?
Or maybe you've stared at a skincare ingredient list till your eyes just glazed over.
Oh, definitely. It can get overwhelming.
Well, get ready, because today we're diving deep into being a consumer. We've got a fresh batch of insights for you, all pulled together by the news aggregator Consumers.App. This is stuff from today, May 22nd, 2025.
Think of it as your cheat sheet.
Exactly. Your fast track to knowing what's really going on. Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through all the noise, to bring you the knowledge that actually matters.
Making you informed without the headache.
Our mission today, to explore what's new, what's noteworthy in consumer trends, and give you that practical and analytical edge.
And what's immediately striking, I think, is just how many different areas this touches.
Right.
From the microscopic level of what we put on our skin, all the way up to how we shop for food, how we plan for the future. It's all connected.
Understanding these currents can really empower you, can it? Help you navigate the marketplace with more confidence.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Something super relevant, especially this time of year. Skincare. Consumers.App flagged a headline from the Hindustan Times via MSN.com.
Okay.
It asks, Retinol is the vampire of skincare. Chirpit shares if you should include it in your summer routine.
Yeah.
Vampire or, superhero. What's the lowdown on using retinol when the sun's blazing?
Right, the vampire thing. Well, retinol, at its core, it's just a form of vitamin A.
Okay.
It's fat-soluble, essential for things like vision, immune function. But in skincare, it's really prized because it helps boost skin cell turnover.
Well, turnover. Like getting rid of old skin.
Exactly. And that process helps smooth out fine lines, wrinkles, those classic signs of aging. So yeah, it's a really popular anti-aging ingredient.
So the vampire bit must be about sunlight then. What are the real worries about using it in summer?
Precisely. Because retinol speeds up shedding old skin cells and bringing new ones to the surface, well, that new skin can be more vulnerable to the sun's UV radiation.
Oh, makes sense.
Yeah. So that increased sensitivity means a higher risk of sunburn, maybe irritation. The standard advice is, apply retinol at night.
Nighttime only.
And be absolutely rigorous about using a broad spectrum sunscreen during the day. That's key to counteracting the effects.
Nighttime application. Serious sunscreen. Got it. Now, the article also mentioned combining retinol with vitamin C. Is that like a skincare power couple?
It seems like it could be. There was a 2025 study that looked specifically at combining certain retinol derivatives. I think it was retinol, propionate, and hydroxypanocolone retinol with vitamin C.
Okay.
And the findings suggested this duo can actually enhance both the anti-aging and the skin brightening results.
Oh, interesting.
Researchers saw it helped sort of dial down the activity of genes linked to skin aging and also improved how the skin bounced back after UV exposure. So it points to a really interesting synergy there.
Synergy. Nice. Now, when we talk retinol, are the synthetic versions different from natural ones? Effectiveness, safety.
That's a good question. Synthetic retinol tends to be quite potent, which is, why it can sometimes cause irritation, especially if you have sensitive skin.
Right.
Naturally derived retinoids might be a bit milder, but the general scientific view is that using lower concentrations of synthetic retinol in products that are formulated well can really minimize those risks.
So formulation matters.
Hugely. It really comes down to the specific product and how your own skin reacts to it.
Knowing your skin, knowing the product sounds key. The article also mentioned AI and dermatology. How's artificial intelligence changing skincare?
Oh, this is fascinating. AI, especially using these things called convolutional neural networks.
CNNs.
Yeah, think of it like teaching a computer to see patterns in images. It's being used to analyze skin conditions.
Wow.
That includes understanding how skin responds to treatments like retinoids. These AI tools, they offer potential for non-invasive, maybe more precise ways to diagnose skin issues.
So maybe leading to more tailored skincare down the line.
Exactly. Imagine an app analyzing a photo of your skin and giving truly personalized advice.
AI skincare advice from a selfie. That's pretty futuristic.
It's getting there.
And the article also debunked the idea that you have to totally ditch retinol in summer.
Right. That's a bit of a myth, the idea that summer and retinol just don't mix. It's not quite true.
Good news for some.
Yeah. As long as you're really diligent with sun protection, apply it at night, and maybe introduce it gradually so your skin adjusts, you can definitely keep using it year-round.
That's reassuring. And it's good to know there are regulations around these ingredients, too.
Absolutely. Big bodies like the World Health Organization, they recognize retinol as essential, allow it in over-the-counter products.
But with limits.
Yes, they emphasize safe concentrations, educating consumers about side effects, and caution against high doses without professional guidance. Safety first.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Moving on. Consumers.App also pointed to an article from India TV News. Headline: 2015 versus 2025 skincare. A skin doctor reveals what's in and what's out. A decade. That's a lot of change in beauty. What are the big shifts?
The biggest shift really is away from those super elaborate, 10-step routines.
Yeah, I remember those.
And products packed with synthetic ingredients that were big around 2015. The trend now is much more towards minimalism.
Fewer steps, fewer products.
Exactly. Plus, a huge emphasis on personalization and ingredient transparency. People want to know what's in their product.
And they want science.
Yes, science-backed, gentle formulations that focus on long-term skin health, not just aggressive quick fixes.
Minimalism sounds good for my morning routine. And personalization again.
Yeah.
How's that evolving beyond just oily or dry skin?
This is where tech, like AI and also XR, extended reality.
Like VR and AR.
Yeah, virtual and augmented reality. They're becoming really influential. AI can analyze your skin from photos, questionnaires, give super customized recommendations. And XR tech can create these immersive experiences where you can maybe visualize skin changes, understand how routines might affect you. Makes it more interactive, more data-driven.
Virtual try-ons for skincare routines. That's wild.
It is pretty cool.
What about measuring if products actually work? Any new ways to do that?
Yeah, there's research into developing computer simulation models. They can take data from shorter clinical trials, say 8 weeks, and predict the longer-term effects on things like poor appearance.
So better predictions.
Right. More objective, science-based assessments of how well a product is likely to perform. Helps cut through the marketing hype, hopefully.
Definitely needed sometimes. Another point was about removing makeup properly. Seems basic, but important.
Hugely important. Studies keep showing that not getting all your makeup off, especially if you wear it often, is a major cause of skin problems.
Clogged pores, breakouts.
Exactly. So innovations like visualization systems that can actually detect trace amounts of leftover makeup, they're becoming more valuable in helping people cleanse really effectively.
So it's not just the fancy creams, it's washing your face properly, too.
Back to basics, absolutely.
Now, that focus on ingredient transparency, I've definitely seen that everywhere.
It's a massive trend. Since 2015, consumers have become much more educated, much more demanding about knowing what's in their skincare.
Why the shift?
Concerns about irritation, allergies linked to some synthetics. It's led brands to reformulate with safer, often plant-derived alternatives, and just be much clearer on their labels. It ties into that whole clean beauty movement.
Right, clean beauty.
Good.
You can't talk trends without mentioning social media, right? How are influencers and online shopping changing things?
Oh, platforms like TikTok, Instagram, they've massively sped up the skincare trend cycle.
Things move fast online.
They really do. Influencers share reviews, personal stories that really resonate, especially with younger people. And e-commerce just gives you access to this huge range of products, big brands, tiny indie labels. It amplifies everything.
It's a whole ecosystem driving what ends up on our bathroom shelves.
Pretty much.
So the big takeaway for daily makeup wearers.
Simple, really. Thorough, effective cleansing is non-negotiable for healthy skin. And if tech can help you see if you got it all off, that's a bonus for preventing issues later.
Okay, clear message. Let's switch gears. Talk about what we're putting into our bodies. Consumers.App highlighted a headline from Le Monde.
Le Monde, okay.
It says, promotions in major French supermarket chains often target foods that are too fatty, too sweet, or too salty. Doesn't sound great for health.
No, it's a significant point. A 2024 survey in France found that supermarket deals overwhelmingly focus on less healthy options. Only 12% of promotions were for genuinely healthy choices.
Only 12%, wow.
Yeah, and that imbalance in marketing can really sway what people end up buying and eating.
So those tempting buy one, get one free deals, often for stuff we should probably eat less of. How does that affect our habits and health overall?
Well, research suggests it contributes to what they call food swamps.
Food swamps.
Yeah, environments where unhealthy food isn't just more available, it's actively pushed more than healthier stuff. The deals, the placement, it heavily influences choices, leads to higher consumption of less nutritious food and, raises public health concerns.
It's a bit of a cycle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Easy access, good prices for things that aren't the best for us. The article also mentioned online food delivery. How does that fit in?
Yes. A 2025 study looked at this and found that online delivery platforms actually increase access to fast food, especially for younger people and lower income groups.
Makes it easier to get.
Much easier. The study showed a striking correlation. Just a 10% increase in available fast food options online led to a 22% jump in the likelihood of ordering it.
Wow, 22%.
Yeah, it's like the food swamp went digital. Those less healthy options are even more tempting, just a few taps away.
That's a huge impact. How does the way French supermarkets promote food compare globally? Is this just a French thing?
Unfortunately, no. France seems to mirror a global trend where processed convenience foods get way more promotional focus.
This is widespread.
It seems so. While some countries are starting to look at regulations for healthier promotions, advocates in France say they're lagging a bit, with most special offers still favoring the less nutritious stuff.
A bit concerning. On a different note, what about ethical food choices? What do consumers prioritize there? The article mentioned preferences.
Right. A 2025 study on this found that people are willing to pay more for food with higher animal welfare standards, on average about 16.4% more.
Okay, that's specific.
But interestingly, the study found less willingness to pay a similar premium just for products labeled as climate-friendly.
Huh. So animal welfare trumps climate concerns, financially speaking.
For now, it seems ethical concerns about how animals are treated might have a stronger pull on the purse strings for many consumers compared to environmental factors.
Interesting insight. Are French supermarkets doing anything to offer healthier options, despite the promotion trends?
Yes, there is a gradual shift. You see major chains introducing more health-focused lines, improving nutritional labeling.
So some progress.
Some. But as we said, the bulk of the promotions still lean towards processed foods. It suggests the move to a truly health-oriented retail environment is probably going to be slow.
Sounds like tracking all this requires some serious data analysis. What kind of methods are being used?
Researchers are definitely using more advanced techniques, things like machine learning, analyzing social media data like geotagged food posts.
My food photos matter.
They could. Combined with statistical models like Bayesian networks, this lets them map how popular different foods or cuisines are becoming, giving supermarkets data-driven insights to tailor what they offer.
So my dinner post might actually influence supermarket shelves.
Potentially, yes.
Now, how does that food actually get to us? Consumers.App also featured a CNET article via MSN.com. Here's how delivery drivers are paid and how much you should be tipping. Something I think a lot of us wonder about.
It's a really crucial part of the modern consumer world, isn't it? Grocery delivery drivers usually earn a mix of things. Base pay from the platform. Delivery fees may be charged to the customer, and crucially, customer tips.
Tips are important then.
Very. In many cases, tips are a significant chunk of their income, especially as base wages in the gig economy haven't always kept up, or have even decreased sometimes. Earnings vary a lot, too, depends on order volume, time of day, platform, demand.
So that tip we add at checkout really does make a difference. What's the general guideline for tipping grocery delivery in 2024?
The common advice now is somewhere between 10% and 20% of your total order cost.
10 to 20%.
Right. And for smaller orders, maybe a minimum of around $5. Experts stress these tips are vital, and you might consider tipping more for bigger orders, tricky deliveries, bad weather, or just really great service. Many apps suggest tips now, too.
That's helpful, a good benchmark. The article also mentioned some pretty advanced tech in grocery delivery.
Oh, yeah. We're seeing things like autonomous delivery robots and these integrated vehicle robot systems for that final last mile to your door. The goal is reducing labor costs, maybe speeding things up.
And behind the scenes?
Sophisticated scheduling algorithms. They use techniques like mixed integer linear programming. It's a way to find the best routes and timings considering all the constraints, like time windows and driver availability. Makes the whole thing more efficient.
Robot grocery delivery and complex math.
Yeah.
Wow. What's the overall impact of this gig economy been on drivers' earnings and conditions?
Well, research suggests that even with growing demand, the gig economy model has often led to lower average earnings for drivers.
Why is that?
Intense competition between platforms, companies trying to control costs, even the pandemic surge in demand didn't always translate to sustained wage growth. Market dynamics, sometimes a near duopoly, can put downward pressure on pay.
It sounds like a tough spot for drivers. And managing all those deliveries must be a huge logistical headache.
It absolutely is. The main challenges are constantly adjusting schedules, optimizing routes in real time as orders change or delays happen, and just scaling up or down to handle fluctuating demand.
How do they tackle that?
Advanced algorithms again? Heuristics, kind of like smart shortcuts to find good solutions quickly, and that mixed integer linear programming we mentioned, they're essential for solving these complex routing puzzles efficiently.
So lots of hidden complexity to get our groceries on time. How did the COVID-19 pandemic change things specifically?
It caused a massive surge in demand for grocery and food delivery. Platforms saw huge growth in driver numbers as people relied on these services during lockdowns.
A big shift online.
A major shift. Though it's worth noting other gig sectors like ride-sharing saw declines due to regulations and behavior changes. It wasn't uniform.
A real shakeup. And who are these drivers typically? Any demographic trends?
Recent research suggests they're often younger men. Interestingly, in some region, many are local residents, not necessarily immigrants. In big cities, they can be a noticeable part of the workforce. They're still a small overall percentage.
Okay, let's shift focus again. Sustainability, a huge topic. Consumers.App highlighted a JD Super article. Bit of a mouthful, this one.
Okay, let's hear it.
CalRecycle releases new EPR packaging regulations. Imminent compliance, new exclusions, and deferred eco-modulation implementation. What on earth is EPR?
EPR stands for Extended Producer Responsibility. It's basically a policy approach that makes the companies producing goods responsible for their packaging throughout its entire life cycle, including end of life.
Managing the waste.
Exactly. The idea is to make producers factor in the environmental costs, encouraging them to design packaging that's easier to recycle and generates less waste overall. These new CalRecycle rules in California are basically tightening things up, making producers more accountable.
So the company that makes the box has to worry about the box after I'm done with it.
That's the principle. These new regs differ from older ones. They have updated exclusions like for medical or hazardous packaging.
Right.
A phased timeline for compliance. And a key thing is the deferred implementation of something called eco-modulation.
Eco-modulation, what's that?
Think of it like a carrot and stick. Producers pay fees, right? Eco-modulation adjusts those fees based on how eco-friendly their packaging is. Use more recyclable stuff, pay lower fees. It rewards better choices.
That sounds smart. Why delay it in California then?
Well, implementing it effectively needs solid infrastructure for collecting and processing different packaging types and accurate data on environmental performance.
Complex stuff.
Very. California decided to defer it, to give everyone more time to build that infrastructure, adjust supply chains, and make sure the fee system is fair and actually works.
Getting the system right. What are the broader impacts of EPR policies generally? Environmentally, economically?
Research usually shows EPR leads to higher recycling rates, less landfill waste. It definitely pushes companies towards better, more eco-friendly design.
That's the goal.
Economically, it shifts some waste management costs from local governments and taxpayers onto the producers. This can spur innovation in materials and processes.
Any downsides?
Challenges include needing good data, strong enforcement, and there's always the potential for some costs to be passed to consumers. It's a balancing act.
Makes sense. The article also mentioned EEIO analyses. What are those?
Environmentally extended input-output analyses. They're a comprehensive way to assess the environmental impacts of products, including packaging, across the entire supply chain.
Whole picture.
Right, capturing direct and indirect effects. They're really valuable for understanding the full footprint of different packaging choices and figuring out where changes will have the biggest impact. Can be more efficient than traditional methods for a broad overview.
Seeing the whole chain helps. What specific packaging is exempt under these new California rules?
The main ones are packaging for medical products, hazardous materials, also some exemptions for very small producers.
Why exempt those?
Often public health reasons, medical packaging needs special handling, and avoiding putting too much burden on small businesses that might struggle with complex regulations.
Sensible exclusions. And finally on EPR, what's the immediate impact of delaying that eco-modulation part?
Short term, it likely means producers pay similar fees regardless of how sustainable their packaging is right now. So maybe less immediate pressure to switch to greener materials.
A slower start.
Potentially. But the hope is this extra time allows for a more robust, fair, and ultimately effective implementation later on, leading to better environmental outcomes in the long run.
Okay, from packaging waste to something even smaller. Microplastics. Consumers.App flagged a BBC article. Plastic in every level of food web, say scientists. That sounds not good.
No, it is pretty concerning. Microplastics are tiny plastic bits from microscopic up to about 5 millimeters.
Where do they come from?
Breakdown of larger plastics, clothing fibers, packaging, industrial waste. They get into the food web mainly through contamination of soil, water, air, which then affects food ingredients directly or indirectly. A huge chunk of ocean microplastics actually comes from textiles, like our clothes shedding fibers.
And it's not just the oceans anymore. The article mentioned land-based food sources.
Exactly. Recent studies found microplastics in various land invertebrates. One study found nearly 12% of specimens contaminated, with earthworms showing the highest rate, around 30%. And polyester, probably from clothing, was common.
So soil to worms. It's getting into the land food chain, too.
It appears so. It indicates microplastic contamination is increasingly pervasive on land as well.
How are food safety authorities tackling this potential health threat?
Authorities like JECFA, that's the Joint FAA-WHO Expert Committee on Food Additives, play a key role. They do international safety and risk assessments for stuff in food, including contaminants like microplastics.
Setting standards.
Evaluating the science, setting health guidelines, providing independent advice to governments. Ensuring global food safety standards are met. They're the watchdogs.
Like guardians of the food supply. What health risks are actually linked to eating these microplastics?
Well, research suggests they might carry toxic chemicals that could leach into our bodies. Concerns include things like inflammation, potential damage to our DNA, maybe even carcinogenic effects long term. It's important to stress the full extent of these health impacts is still under active investigation. We need more research.
Definitely sounds like something to watch. Are there any innovative solutions, safer alternatives being developed?
Yes, there's promising work on safer biodegradable materials, like scientists are developing microcapsules from plant proteins.
Plant proteins?
Yeah, to encapsulate ingredients for food or supplements. They're designed to be biodegradable and release their contents using digestive enzymes, a sustainable alternative to plastic microcarriers.
That sounds much better.
But
finally on this, what guidance are regulators giving about synthetic ingredients and microplastics in food?
regulatory bodies are setting limits on contaminant levels in ingredients, recommending best practices to minimize contamination during production. They regularly review the science and update guidelines to reduce exposure and ensure safer food.
Constant vigilance. Okay, our final deep dive today, retirement and home ownership. Consumers.App flagged an AOL article asking simply, does buying a home in retirement make sense? A huge question for many.
It certainly is, and it's a decision with really significant financial implications for retirees.
Pros and cons.
Exactly. On the plus side, owning a home can offer equity building, potential appreciation, housing stability. But the risks are substantial too.
Like what?
Tying up a lot of liquid assets, market fluctuations, ongoing costs like maintenance, taxes. A house isn't as liquid as other investments.
So the retirement dream home needs a careful financial reality check. How does someone's financial knowledge play into this?
Interestingly, a recent study from Japan found that even seniors with higher financial literacy didn't necessarily make more investments or plan better financially overall.
Really? More knowledge doesn't equal better decisions?
Not always, it seems. Suggests just knowing more isn't always enough to guarantee sound choices in retirement, like whether to buy a home. Other factors are at play.
That's surprising. What about their ability to handle financial risk? How does risk capacity factor in?
A 2021 study highlighted this. Risk capacity, basically how much risk you can comfortably take, is crucial. Retirees with larger portfolios might afford to be more conservative.
And those with less
might feel pressure towards riskier choices, maybe like buying a home hoping for appreciation, but that increases their vulnerability if things go wrong.
A delicate balance. The article also mentioned income, leisure, preferences influencing decisions.
Yeah, a 2024 study suggests people with higher stable incomes before retirement and a strong preference for leisure might retire earlier and go for more conservative strategies, which could include buying a home for stability.
While others might need to work longer.
Right. Those with lower pre-retirement incomes might need to work longer, maybe delay or skip big purchases like a home. Your lifestyle vision really shapes these choices.
How you plan to live in retirement matters. What about those ongoing costs of owning a home then?
Maintenance, repairs, insurance, property taxes, these can really impact long-term security, especially on a fixed income.
Unexpected bills hit hard.
They can erode savings. It requires careful budgeting, maybe even thinking about downsizing or renting later on.
That sounds like a potential pitfall. The article mentioned the retirement consumption puzzle. What's that?
It's this observation that many retirees actually spend less than financial models predict.
They spend less. Why?
Research suggests they might become less influenced by past spending habits, adjust to lower overall expenditure. For someone buying a home, this might help offset costs if they cut back elsewhere, but it still needs very careful planning.
Interesting. Less spending overall could free up funds for housing. Finally, how do things like RRSPs or 401ks interact with buying a home in retirement?
Well, in some places, like Canada, with RRSPs, you can withdraw funds to buy a home, but
There's a catch.
you absolutely need to understand the implications. Withdrawals can have tax consequences, potentially reduce your overall retirement income long term. Strategic financial planning is absolutely essential if you're considering that route. You know, what's so compelling when you look across all these areas, skincare, food, packaging, retirement, is how every single choice we make as consumers is influenced by this incredible mix. Science, economics, psychology, environmental awareness, it's all swirling together.
It really highlights how dynamic everything is.
Absolutely. The consumer landscape is just constantly shifting, incredibly multifaceted.
So as we all navigate these evolving landscapes, skincare, food, sustainability, even retirement planning, the big question for each of us really is, how will you adapt your own habits in response to these realities? What stood out most to you from our exploration today?
Lots to think about.
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive. If you found these insights helpful, please do like and subscribe. That way you won't miss our future explorations into the forces shaping our world.